Hey, what's going on, folks? Steve Wallace here, the W Show 100.1 FM, alongside Darren Smith of the Ship 810 WHB Sports Radio. The Afternoon Gridiron is what we're doing again today.
Yes,
Seems
sir.
like, what is this, day 20 something? Of course, camp wraps up in a couple of days on Saturday, but we, like always, post training camp press conference. We do our show. So, Darren, what's going on? How you doing today, man?
I'm doing okay. I'm not sure whether or not it has me on the screen or not, but
It doesn't.
I had, okay. Well, I had people calling me, so let me back out and jump right back in so you can see me on camera. I had to turn as soon as we start the show. Somebody wants to call me. It happens all the time. Give me 1 second.
Okay. We're just waiting on Darren to come back on. Again, this is the Afternoon Gridiron. Steve Walls and Darren Smith. We do this like we do every day. What's up, Darren? How you doing? Yeah, just waiting on Darren to come back on here. Here he is.
Yeah, I'm back.
Just bring Darren back on.
I'm sorry about that. My apologies.
It's all good.
No, I'm sorry. So, what was your question again?
No, I'm just saying, how you doing today, man?
Doing okay, obviously with stuff that's taking place that's not really football related, trying to get some things. I'm actually at the radio station right now out here at the Union Broadcasting and trying to get some things in order because I want to I've already gotten approved from the owner, but we're looking to try to partner with some people to help do some voter registration stuff before the October 7th deadline. So I want to make sure that the station is involved and has a footprint and a face in the community. Something that we talk about with the players and the Chiefs and stuff like that. Well, I want to make sure A10 does their part as well. So that's what I'm out here trying to focus on doing.
Man, it's huge, man. Voter registration is you guys have not registered to vote. I want to take this time right now to tell you to get out, register and vote. There's various platforms. If you're on social media, I know the social media platforms have various links that you're able to click on. Remember, register to vote is very important. Vote like your life depends on it.
Because
That's the word right now, exactly. But today, during the Chiefs post-training camp press conference, we talked to the assistant coaches. Another assistant coaches day. We get 3 times a year where we're able to talk to the assistant coaches.
Yeah, that's correct.
Training camp being one of them. Dave Toad, the assistant head coach for the Chiefs, also special teams coordinator, talked to us first. He talked about, Coach Reed setting the table for an open conversation between the players and coaches as far as what's going on in today's society regarding, against racism and things of that nature.
Yeah, it was interesting. I didn't know how long it was going to take for that question to get thrown out there. And to everyone who wants to know, I think Steve asked a question. I didn't ask any questions. I think I had my little 15 seconds of fame yesterday, I guess, more or less. But in all seriousness, obviously there is a lot to unpack because of I think the Chicago Bears, I think they canceled their practice today. I think the Jets did as well. So, it somehow made news that the Chiefs were practicing today, if that makes sense. The mere fact that they were practicing, that seemed to draw headlines or whatever. But as he said, they have conversations with their players all the time. And one of the things that that I took from Dave Toth's conversation is that they are open-minded. They let the players, speak freely. And, as it relates to what may happen in the near future, they pretty much stand in agreement to whatever the players decide to do as a collective group that they're in as well.
And that's huge for them to say that, because from the outside looking in, a lot of people think that, or fans think that, no, this Chiefs it comes from the top down. They do with whatever Clark Hunt says, whatever Andy Reid says. No, it's a collective. They're all on one accord. And there's not only Dave Toad said that, but a couple of coaches said that. Whereas, if one guy thinks something, we'll talk about it collectively, and then we'll all move as we are one.
And I'll say this as well. Obviously winning helps. Winning the Super Bowl helps, but
of course.
But with that, well, I say that to say that with that, it buys you a lot of currency. With the situation that is unfolding, because people are taking their cues from it. Obviously, look, nothing against the 49ers, but you don't really hear a lot of things coming out of San Francisco. with all the uprising and things of that nature. In Kansas City, obviously, now San Francisco is probably the most liberal city in the country, in the most liberal state. But you look at Kansas City, we're right here, hard in the Midwest, conservative town, so to speak, if you would say political leaning. All that being said, look, Clark Hunt. I, I will say this: with what we saw take place yesterday, and what may come out of it. I know this is an NBA thing, and of course, the NBA players they have decided to continue on and resume on with the season. The all eyes will continue to focus on this team and the Houston Texans as we get prepared for the September 10th opening. And
Mhm.
a lot of teams and a lot of players will take their lead off of what they do in that opening game. Not here to say what will take place. That'll be for the players to do when that opening night comes. But again, I can assure everyone that Clark Hunt, Mark Donovan, Brett Veach, Andy Reid, they stand 100% behind what these players decide to do. It's not going to be a thing where Pittsburgh a few years ago, we had some players stay in the locker room and some players come out and no, whatever they decide to do as a collective group, the organization is 100% behind.
And Dave Tobe also talked about, he is the head assistant coach, but he also coaches special teams. And special
Yes.
teams, of course, being one of those position groups, so to speak, that is really affected by no preseason games because you can't really get a good feel you can't recreate the speed of a regular game, right? Uh, so he talked about, those guys having to learn on a run. They're having to learn. And make only one mistake. Don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, and to that point, Steve, the special teams is always a good place for the wide receivers. He talked highly
Mm-hmm.
about Pringle, Kemp, Dieter, obviously McCoy. So the one that you usually don't use as often is Tyreek Hill for obvious reasons. Uh, but again, the thing that hurts not having a preseason is that you don't get a chance to see the rookies and those players that are trying to make the team where their
Mm-hmm.
best option is being on special teams. Obviously, you got players like Snead and Willie Gay that will make the team, but also have a role on special teams. Unless Gay, I think if Gay becomes a starter, then he might get pulled off of that. But even if that's the case, then that's still, still opens up a position for someone to make the special team. By them, again, by not having or by the lack of not having any preseason games, it does hurt. But it hurts from top to bottom because all the other coaches in those position groups aren't able to get a real fair assessment of the type of play that you have, when the whistle is blown out there in real live action.
Exactly. And he talked about Antonio Hamilton. And
Yeah.
of course, Antonio was brought over from the Giants, plays cornerback, but he also played gunner for the Giants. And he said that he's going to be a key role, or have a key role in, playing gunner for this team.
Yeah, what I took from that is that at the moment, I think Hamilton is first team, and I think Pringle, who was the starter for Chiefs last year, is backing him up now. So that's something that I kind of gathered from his comments because he did say he was working with the first team. So, but I mean, that's well, it's good to have experience because not only Hamilton but Pringle as well as Kemp, they've all started in that gunner position for their respective teams, and so. That's a good thing, obviously, to have that type of experience if you're Dave Tobe, to where you can just plug and play someone in that position.
And of course, linebacker coach Matt House, he talked to us. He was asked a question about some of the preliminary. Of course, it's still 2 weeks away, but some of the preliminary, game planning for the Texans, and it was interesting because he said that they haven't really started. They really haven't really get dug into the Texans, so to speak, because they're still evaluating players, at this point. But if you think about it, they would know who they're going to keep if they had the preseason games and COVID not hit, So that was the interesting thing. And he said they don't want to, get stale working through the Texans game plan and going over things too quickly.
Well, and that's the other thing too, because this week would have been game number 3, so we would have been. I think you probably would have been in DC, but I would have been traveling down to Dallas for the third game of the preseason, and then of course Next week they would have had their season finale against Green Bay, I believe, at Arrowhead. That being said, Steve, when you look at it, it doesn't really make sense to start implementing your game plan 2 weeks early because you don't know who's still going to be on the team, and then they might get, somebody might get picked up by the Texans, and then you don't want them kind of, revealing the game plan 2 weeks out, and then of course, I can't
We've
remember if
seen
training
that
came back.
before. We've seen that last year.
Yeah, with Carlos Hyde of all people. No, I mean it's possible, but I just don't. I would see them putting in the game plan obviously after the completion of training camp, so that way once you dwindle down your roster, you know who's going to be on your final roster because because you still got actually what is it 2 weeks from today, so whatever the last official day is, and when you're able to start cutting down players to your final roster, I think that's when and as we were told, September 4th is going to be the team's Monday, so I expect them to start putting the stuff in
That week. Yep.
September the 4th. Yeah.
He also talked about going up against their own offense and some of the rookies, having to work, the game plan fast. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you're going up against your offense every day. You know what they're going to do, and especially if Andy Reid comes and says, "Oh, let's run it again." So how can you evaluate guys when they know what the play is going to be?
Well, I would say you want to make sure that they're not making the same mistakes twice. Like you said, you give them a chance, and when you run it again, if a mistake is being made, you see whether or not they can correct it, and then also make sure that the play that they are actually able to make the play, both on offense and defense. Obviously, on offense side of the ball, if they want you to run a play again, maybe perhaps Andy Reid saw something in there that he did not think would have taken place or would have happened. So he wants to see the play transition once again. However, I mean, there's obviously ways of looking at it. I mean, you could just be running again because he likes it. It was so pretty. You want to see whether or not you can duplicate it again.
We also talked to Sam Madison,
Coach
who is
Madison,
the defensive backs coach. He talked about Rashad Fenton working extremely hard. He understands that Fenton will be needed in the nickel package as far as within their secondary, and also talked about Bashaud Breeland. Of course, Breeland will be suspended for the first 4 games of the season, so they'll have some depth issues, so to speak, if you're looking at the defensive back position. But one thing that I heard from him is that Tyrann Mathieu makes it easier for all of the players, right? He makes it a lot easier for those players because he tells them exactly where they need to go. And all they have to do, it allows them to play fast.
Well, and that was one of the beauties of having Tyrann on last year, that he was really pretty much the coach on the field. He wasn't the one calling the plays out. I think that's the linebacker position, but he can still, from the backfield, put people in place where they need to be. Again, I think we kind of talked about it a little bit yesterday, Steve, the fact that, knowing that Rashad is going to be out for 4 games, you can plan and coach to those players who are either trying to make the team or those who are looking to step up and get that PT. Again, it's different from if Rashad was to go down in week number 1 and then we're trying to figure out who's going to play, who's going to step up, versus already knowing 2-3 weeks in advance, okay, he's not going to play the first 4 games. We can coach up the person, the person or people who are going to be playing in this spot right now that, that's going to make the team. We can coach them into that spot. So at least for the first 4 weeks, we don't have that much of a precipitous drop off, so to speak. And then, of course, Bashaud, when he comes back in, if he does what he needs to do during training camp and during those 4 weeks while he's out, is able to come back and kind of keep the ball rolling, so to speak.
And the thing about it is, he said that they will hold Bashaud Breeland down until he comes back.
I caught that. Yeah,
did you get that?
I did. I caught that. I was like, "You gonna hold him down?" So it's okay.
It's like he's in jail. It's like he's in jail. Hey, we gonna hold you down, bro, till you come back.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna take care of the commissary. We're gonna make sure you get your conjugal visits. I'm like, bro, seriously? Like, okay, that was a good way of describing it from Coach Madison. And then, of course, I know you hadn't brought it up yet, but you did get a chance to ask Coach Madison about everything that has taken place. Obviously with the NBA last night, and then with the players that they have, and if you could kind of speak to, why you put that question out there and what you got from his response.
So the question was, in case you guys didn't listen to the post training camp practice press conference. I asked Coach Madison, with everything that's going on between yesterday and today, and teams boycotting for change, causing the games to be canceled across sports, and some NFL teams, of course, had canceled practice today. Like you had the Washington NFL team, you had the Indianapolis Colts, Bears, a number of teams that canceled today. So, I wanted to know his thoughts. And of course, also being a Black coach in pro sports, was it hard for him to come in today? I mean, just seeing everything that's going on. And I wanted to know what have the conversations been like within the last 24 to 48 hours with everything that's going on, with the social injustices that's going on in today's world and the canceling of sports. So Madison, he gave the very in-depth, thoughtful response, to what I asked him. And I commend him for everything that he said. But one of the things that I took away from it is that, whatever the players want to do going forward, that the coaches and the administration, being front office, they'll follow. So I think that's huge.
And I take that to say that, again, Andy Reid leans a different way than both you and I do, and that's fine. But what I took most away from that is that if the players decide to take a knee, Andy Reid and the coaches are taking a knee as well.
I think so. Along with them. I think so. And it's only right that they do that. Of course, 4 years ago yesterday, Colin Kaepernick, took his knee for the first time.
Correct.
So, and a lot of people didn't agree with that. A lot of the players, and we talked to Tyrann Mathieu earlier this preseason about why he didn't do it. And I mean, he said he was going through a lot of things, and if he had known back then what he knows now, that he probably would have. But he was just going through a lot and just getting into the league, and with all the things that he had been going through, he wasn't in the right frame of mind to be able to do it, which is understandable. Everybody has their reasons, but now I think that everyone will be on one accord.
I'd also say this, Steve, is that we look at the NBA, we saw, a lot of times players are, let's say, some feel that they're not in the right financial situation. Obviously, it's different if Patrick Mahomes does it versus the man on the 53rd spot on the roster.
Exactly.
And so the problems, or not the problems, but the issues that can come from them doing it. So, it's a personal thing. So, sometimes you have to just, say, well, is it worth it? And look, and it's not just because, we've seen players retire. Someone retired from rookie retired from the Patriots this year before the season even started. And it could be concussion, just for any particular reason that players decide to just step away from the game or whatever. And so, it is an individual choice. But you're also in a situation where the players realize now that they do have the power, and if they are smart about it and they know how to use that power, then you'll be surprised how much they can get done and how much change will come. Now, they didn't use their power when the opportunity presented itself as it relates to the collective bargaining agreement. I talked with Darren Smith a couple months ago on the show about that, but so that is what it is in that regards. But but you see that the changes that they're looking to do, or that they're looking for,
right?
I think they have a good chance of making it happen this time around if they decide, if they stand as a collective unit and don't be like, I guess, 1987 when some players decided to strike and the others didn't. So,
and another thing that I think would happen, because a lot of people are Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes getting together and possibly not playing in 2 weeks on that Thursday night kickoff. And we talked yesterday, and I said, well, if the NBA comes, but it's all predicated, I think, on the NBA. A lot of things that are in sports are predicated on the NBA. When the NBA moves, it seems like everyone moves now. And so the NBA, I read today that they'll still be boycotting today. Of course they did yesterday, but also today. and then Friday.
Well,
So
and
if
I
they come
think,
back, then I think the NFL is going to follow.
well, they did say that they're going to resume the season. I expect the games to be canceled today just because of how you had three
Mhm.
teams play. So I would imagine that would be the case. Um, Friday. Then. So is it confirmed about Friday's games being canceled as well?
It's not confirmed yet, but they said that they'll see when they'll be resumed.
Okay. But all that being said, I mean, they have the power, man. They just have to utilize it. Again, a lot of us are waiting to see, what the Chiefs are going to do, when the time comes, come come September 10th, and I will just say that people will be in for a rude awakening when that takes place.
Exactly. All right. So we talked to Mike Kafka, the quarterbacks coach for the Chiefs. He said he was asked a question about possibly being an offensive coordinator candidate and what he's learning
Yeah,
from
yeah, that
what he's
caught me
learning
off
from
guard.
Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid. And he said their attention to detail. I kind of wanted him to go in a little bit more depth about and talk about Eric Bieniemy and what he's learned specifically from him, because of course he talks to not only Andy Reid but Eric Bieniemy, who's calling the play. So what was your thoughts on that? Because like you said, it threw you for a loop. It also for me as well.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna be. I just think it was one media person trying to promote this person because I had never heard of him being one. I'd never heard of him before today, and two, I hadn't heard anything about him being on anybody's short list of being an offensive coordinator here or anyplace else. So again, when I say shock, that came as a shock to me. I mean, working with Patrick Mahomes, I guess it's easy to be an offensive coordinator any place. But that being said, I mean, yeah,
But you think about it, it's if you're working with Patrick Mahomes, rightfully so, by osmosis, so to speak, that he's
I'm,
going to reap the benefit of whatever Mahomes gets because he's right there alongside of him. He's soaking in everything, and he's the secret ingredient to Mahomes' success, so to speak.
yeah, I mean, you could say that. I mean, hell, I mean, if you look at what Matt Nagy. I mean, I'm thinking about Nagy. Nagy was actually before, so that was. Yeah, I think he was here, Alex Smith last year. Yeah,
Right.
so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. But I mean, that's fine. If he becomes the next Chiefs OC, that means Eric Bieniemy got a head job somewhere. So,
Right.
I'll rock with that. I mean, but again, to be honest, if you or I was the offensive or quarterbacks coach, we just say Patrick, go do your thing, and we just sit back and we just take all the credit. So, I mean, that's how I'm serious. I mean, that's how
Right.
I look at it. I mean, it's that's not saying a whole lot. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if he gets the opportunity to be an OC because of Patrick, then I mean, we know why.
He also talked about with no preseason games, the quarterback position is also a tough position, whereas being able to see game-like situations and not being able to replicate the speed of the game and the game-like situations.
Well, I'm curious because I mean, you kind of know who your players are. I mean, Patrick is not going to play. He's not going to get benched. You already saw what Matt Moore did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Garrett. I mean, and so I mean, we did get a chance to see for maybe a week or two, a couple of weeks, the XFL quarterback, and then I think you got the third string quarterback that was already here
Mm-hmm.
last year as well. So I mean, you pretty much know what you got. It's just a matter of the third and fourth string. Whether or not you decide to keep three quarterbacks or keep two. So I I mean, I don't know. I mean, preseason as it relates to that particular position, I don't think you're really missing out on too much out there.
We also had Greg Lewis, Chiefs wide receiver coach. He talked a little bit about Tyreek, and he said mentally Tyreek is right where he needs to be. He's also physically where he needs to be. However, last year he did miss a couple of games, so now he's able to come back and be fresh for a whole season.
Well, obviously, as long as he doesn't tweak his hammy again.
Right, right.
I took from him to say that that they expect another big year from Tyreek, but also I think the question was posed to him about comments that Sammy Watkins made about him getting 1,000 yards, or whatever. But what I took most from his comments was that it doesn't matter whose number is called, that they're
Mhm.
all willing to step up. If it takes a big game, let's say for example, obviously Tyreek is first option. If he's not having a good game, hey, if Sammy, DeMarcus, or anybody else's number is called, that they're all ready and they're all proven that they can step up into the position and to make the plays and to make the big plays. And that's what I like. It doesn't really matter. Look, we know that they're all going
Right.
to get their numbers. I mean, it's just as long as they stay healthy and Patrick is upright, they're all going to get numbers. I mean, they're all going to make big plays. And so I just don't, I don't want to read too much into it simply because, again, everything is going to be predicated on the players being healthy. And if they're healthy, then I just see big things. I just see big things from this team, and I've been on record saying that already.
One thing that I will read a lot into is his
Uh-huh.
comments about Marcus Kemp. And he talked
Oh,
about, of course, Marcus Kemp being on the IR last year because of his injury during training camp. And he said he was devastated about Marcus Kemp's injury last year because he was on his way to make the team. So now
yeah.
Marcus Kemp was on the outside looking in. I mean, as far as they allowed him to come back, and he wasn't even a part of the regular roster coming into this season, even though he was coming off of IR. But now with coach, your wide receiver coach saying that about you, where does that leave you? Because I would feel like, hey, I'm a sure win to make this team.
Well,
I mean, if he's
it
saying
can.
it
Well, no, no,
publicly,
no, well, no, well, I mean, well, yeah. Look, I agree with you in theory that yes, you are. Oh man, yeah. Okay, he just said what he said.
because
I'm sitting there watching the thing. Yeah, I should make the squad. But then that's where they get you because if you ain't doing what you're supposed to do because there's still time left for other people.
right.
He's putting it out there that hey, you got a great chance of making the squad. Now it's like you got to continue to show because
Mhm.
there's only a few slots that are guaranteed right now, and ain't no guarantee that you one of them. So that's uh,
Because
that's
they did bring him in for he was one of, I think, a couple of guys that they brought in for a tryout when the league opened it up for teams to be able to bring in guys for tryouts. So Marcus Kemp was one of those guys, and uh, I mean, you're bringing in a tryout guy and you're talking this highly of him. I would expect for him to be able to make the team as long as he, like you said, keeps working hard.
And the one thing that I'm interested in is I can't remember right offhand. I thought that they were able. I thought because of all the negotiation that they were able to actually expand the roster some. So I don't know if it's 53, 56, or 60 players that they're able to do in the down to. So I do believe that more players will have the opportunity, saying to make the squad and to make the team. And so maybe I'll have to ask that tomorrow when we get on the call with Eric Bieniemy what the final number is if I don't find it online before then because I, I am curious to see what the number breakdown would be final roster numbers that you can have and then who all is going to be on the practice squad and then how many numbers you have breaking down to the number of players that per position or whatever. So that's the reason why I say that because I'm real curious to see how that unfolds.
So tomorrow, we'll be talking to Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. We'll also get Frank Clark. I think this will be
Yeah.
the second time we get Frank Clark. We talked to Frank earlier in training camp.
Yeah.
Also, we'll have Fenton and Townsend. They'll all be joining us as well. So until tomorrow, we appreciate everybody. Darren, you want to say something?
No, I was just sitting there thinking when we're looking at the names, and we still. It's funny. The one name that we've been asking that we didn't even ask about today was Rashad Breeland,
Mhm.
because I think he still hasn't spoken, and we obviously talked with Eric Fisher yesterday, which I'm actually shocked. So maybe when we get on the thing tomorrow, we can find out if we'll get him on Saturday, which would be probably the last day that we can get him, if
Exactly.
not Saturday or Monday or whatever. So we'll see. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing what Enemy has to say, and definitely Frank the Shark Clark. So
We appreciate everybody watching this. This is the Afternoon Gridiron. Steve Walls and Darren Smith. Until tomorrow, we are out of here.